Hello, and welcome. I'm done. I'm done this fucking DLC. God damn it. I went in with a beautiful attitude, and I came out very, very, very tired. This is going to be my review. Hopefully I don't take a whole hour to make this review, but this is going to be a review. I'm going to try and keep it fairly condensed. Of Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree. Yeah, I was fucking around after I beat Radon. Let's warp out to the Shadow Realm. Let's see what the fuck's going on here. Where is the very beginning? There it is. Yeah, so let's just go through it. What did I like? What did I not like? I mean, it's more Elden Ring. It's more open world Souls. It's like it's kind of like Elden Ring 1.5. I mean, it's not integrated with the main game basically at all, other than it's like if one of the side quests in the main game led to like a giant new area that was its own whole little mini game. So you start up in here. So here, right away, here's something I really liked about this, which I generally like about all of the From Software games to larger or smaller degree. You start in this cave after you touch the hand in Mogwin Palace, and even right from here, there's an item up there, sitting up there on one of those ledges. So that is to say, the map design in this, aside from the issues of maybe a little bit too much empty space, which I'll get to, aside from that, the map design is as fucking excellent as ever, in my opinion. As excellent as it was back in the original Demon's Souls, all the Dark Souls games. I haven't played Bloodborne, I haven't played Sekiro, but other than that, I've played all the rest, and they just all have really good map design. Like, I love coming full circle in the game. Like, whether you go back to fucking the original Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest on the NES, where you come out of the first castle and you can see the final dungeon just across the little fucking river, but it takes you the whole game to get there. I love stuff like that. I love when everything's not just a linear path. I like when things intermingle and interweave in the map. And From Software is got to be one of the best companies out there, if not the best company at doing stuff like that. So, this, you eventually get up there, but later. But you don't even really necessarily realize that. I didn't realize until I got up there and then dropped down, and I was like, where am I now? And then all of a sudden, I'm back out in the gravesite plain. That's what this is called? Yeah. And I was like, oh, shit. I started here 10, 15 hours ago or whatever. So that is an excellent quality of this DLC. Let's open up the map here. It's a pretty large map once you I guess I should say this is a this review will contain spoilers. I guess I'll make sure to take note of that since this game's fairly new. I'll put it in the title or something. Yeah, I mean, the map is fucking huge. Where the hell am I? Yeah, so you start here, and it's not just fully open. Like, when you start Elden Ring, there are a lot of places you can go in the main map. This one's not quite like that. This one, it's more like you've always got a few choices of where to go, and each of those choices leads to a few other places. So you go down here, it's a dead end. You go up here, and you get to your first major fork in the road. After you get past this little town here, this boss is probably too much for a lot of people right away. It was too much for me right away. You get to this, you see the furnace golem here. He was a lot, so I just went past to here. And then from here, I think a lot of people do what I did, which is come through this gate and go to this giant tower there, which is super cool looking. It's like, it's that thing. Because like a lot of people enjoy the legacy dungeons, myself included. So that's what I did. And then from there, you know, you can go up in here, do this, get all the way up to the dancing lion, and then you're blocked there until you burn down the Skadu tree roots. Or you can go down here. Everywhere you go, there are a couple ways to go from there. Like from this fork, you can also go down here, get into a few little mini dungeons and stuff. Or you can go up here across the bridge to Castle Ensis. From there, you can start to get a view onto the Shadow Keep. You can go up here and do some little dungeons. And then you can go down this way, and that leads to a whole new thing. Everywhere you go, there are branching paths. So that, to me, is really fun. It's one of the things I really enjoy. It makes it feel like my playthrough is my own. If I talk to somebody else, they're going to have taken a slightly different path through the game. Not only everywhere you go, there are multiple branches for where you want to go next, but also, which honestly I think is a little bit better than the main Elden Ring game design, where it's like really open and you just have a million options all at once. I mean, that's really good too, and for people that are into open world, that's great. I guess it's hard to say which one I like better, but I do really like this. And what I figured out is everywhere you go, there are also multiple ways to get there. Like, basically every major place I went to, I eventually discovered there was a second way of getting there. At least two ways. Like the Shadow Keep, you can go in the front entrance. Or you can go in the side entrance, which takes you through a tunnel into the church district. Castle Ensis itself, you go in here, but if you go down here, you eventually find a spirit spring that leads you up onto this fort, and then through here you can get, you know, up here by a different way. There's just a lot of stuff like that. So it's just the map design is excellent. Like, you can see this mountain here. I don't think most people, when they saw that, thought that they would eventually go there. It looked a bit backgroundy, you know? Even knowing from software games that you do often get to places that you can see far off in the background. But you do. You eventually go there. I mean, I think... and this could be a good or a bad thing. The map was quite impressively large for it being a DLC. I know it's an expensive DLC. Here in Canada, I think it was like $60 or something. But it is quite large. And then that kind of leads into, I would say, is a bit of a negative, which is, the map is minimally filled. I think it satisfies the bare minimum for how filled I would want the map to be relative to the size of it and how much time you spend, like, running around on your horse. There are just enough landmarks, dungeons, buildings, encounters, invasions, enemies, etc. There are just enough to keep it from being too boring. I personally... I can't open my map because I have an encounter, I guess, near me. But, like an enemy staggered onto me. But, yeah, I found it was just enough. Honestly, like, I would like for the next game for them to go back to something a little tighter, like a Dark Souls game. I think I would definitely prefer that. Because it's just not that... Like, once you've seen the area... like, for someone like me who likes to really try and put my eyeballs on every single piece of terrain to make sure I don't miss something, it gets very tiring just like ending up in another giant wide open plain and just like zigzagging back and forth and back and forth. What is this? Backhand blade. Oh wow. See, like I did my best to like zigzag across every single wide open plain, and I still miss stuff, and it gets worse when it's like a lot of the terrain is like craggy and bumpy, and there are several different layers of cliffs, and there are like trees or some other bullshit like blocking your vision. So sometimes even not that big of an area can take a long time to cover and figure out what all is there. So yeah, I don't I don't hate the open world part of it, but I don't love it either. I definitely prefer the tighter design of something like Dark Souls 1 or 2. And that's just what I'm into. But I don't hate the open world design, and I think for what it is, they did a pretty good job. All the areas are interesting to look at. They're unique visually. I forgot to mention it when I was walking out of that initial cave, but the view of the Skagitry and the lands around you is really cool. It's very similar to walking outside of that first hero's grave at the beginning of the main game and seeing the Erdtree. It's all very good stuff. So, without a doubt, this entire map plays a little bit like an exploration game, and that's one of my favorite things about these games is exploring around with that sense of tension that you get from the difficult enemies and stuff. And I thought it was really cool finding everything. I found everything, every part of the map on my own, other than the one, there's a part over here that you need to use a specific emote on a specific statue, and then it gets you over here. That was a bit obscure, and you know, that's From Software for you, but somebody told me about it, so I found it. Yeah, the map was, I was surprised with how layered the map was. Every time I thought I was kind of clearing out a section, I realized, oh wait, this crevice down below me actually has another area. I just need to figure out how to get down to it. The areas over here with the red flowers is really beautiful, and then down below it you've got an area covered in blue flowers that's really beautiful. The light, like, let me warp up here. This fucking place, the Jagged Mountain with the dragon area, is insanely fucking cool looking. The aesthetics in this game, yet again, for a From Software game, are really, really excellent. This place is definitely my favorite. It's just really super cool. This is like, what am I, just outside of the boss arena here? So that's the boss arena, so let's go back this way. It's a spirit spring, right? Yeah, like, the sound design is super cool. Yeah, this place is just really, really sweet. The colors, like, it's all gray, but then the sky is all red and orange with the lightning, and the sound is really cool. I mean, this place is just awesome. So, the aesthetics are on point. There's always new areas to discover. So I started on a positive, because I still like that aspect of these games. I thought the mini dungeons, even though there aren't a ton of them, there might be like 10. There are two paradigms of mini dungeons that come back from the main game, which are catacombs and caves, which are the same as they were in the main game, essentially. And then there were two new kinds, forges and jails. Jails were like these frozen caves with all these like jar warriors in them, and these lumps of meat that would come out of the jars, and they were all like frozen and full of these cages. And then the forges were kind of similar to the heroes' graves. They would have a lot of lava in them, and the forges didn't even actually have bosses, but they would have all these different interesting weapons and all these golems to fight. I personally loved the mini dungeons. I thought that was really cool. The way, like, I don't know, some people complained about the mini dungeons in the main game, saying they got repetitive. I never found that. I mean, I did every single mini dungeon I came across, and I tried to find, you know, all of them, essentially. And I thought each of them was unique. I thought they built upon the themes. Like, the catacombs would get more and more confusing and labyrinthine. The very first one you find in Limgrave isn't that bad, but then eventually they're adding whole, like, duplicate sections inside of the catacombs where you think you're in one section because it looks almost the exact same as another section. I just thought they did them really well, and I think in the DLC here, the you know, the small amount of mini dungeons we got, I thought they were just as good. I thought they were all unique, all interesting. They each had their own little theme. I enjoyed those maybe the most out of anything in this, because honestly, the legacy dungeons, I don't know, I didn't love them. I thought a couple of the more medium-sized dungeons were better, like the Fort of Reprimand was a pretty cool little fort. This fort was hard to get to, but once I got to it, it was an interesting little challenge to get through it. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Castle Ensis was maybe my favorite dungeon, and it wasn't that big, and it was fairly linear, but I just liked it. Had a very much a similar feel as like the Carrion Manor. Everybody's like going off about how much they love the Shadow Keep. I didn't find it that great. It was like two main sections. There's this section that leads up to Mesmer, which is basically a giant library. It reminded me very much of the Grand Duke's Archives from Dark Souls 3. And it was okay, but there wasn't that many branching paths throughout it or anything. And then there was this section, the Church District, where you have to drain the water and then explore around. Neither one of them had too many branching or hidden paths. I mean, it was all right. I didn't think it was anything to write home about, and it was fairly short. You get to Mesmer fairly quickly once you're in this part of it. Yeah. Down here, there's like a stealth section down here. There's a giant foggy forest that's really dark, and you can't ride your horse, and you have to stealth around, and there are these enemies that you can't attack, but that hit you with tons of madness damage. And then you find a dungeon down here, well, a little mini dungeon. That was pretty cool. It was all like Frenzied Flame oriented. It was cool. But like kind of short. Nothing too crazy to it. This, like, I was really excited for, and it was okay. The first section of it, the Ballarat Tower Settlement, it had an okay size to it, but it wasn't very intricate. It didn't have any sort of branching pathways, really. It had a couple of shortcuts that you eventually unlock, but there wasn't a lot of secrets to find. There wasn't a lot of intrigue. There was certainly no like Stormvale castles in the DLC, which was my favorite legacy dungeon in the main game, and then my second favorite probably was the sewer underneath Lane Dell. I just found those both to be really well designed, really dungeony, give you something to really sink your teeth into to try and figure out all the little nooks and crannies and secrets of it. Yeah, I really didn't find that with any of the legacy dungeons in the DLC, so I really wound up enjoying the mini dungeons and some of the more medium-sized dungeons a little bit more, probably because I had more of an expectation for the bigger dungeons, but they were bigger, but just not really that much better. They were okay, nothing horribly wrong with them. Again, the aesthetics were all on point, and they had, you know, their little tricks that they would throw at you, like, you know, you find a locked door or an elevator that won't work, you know you're going to loop back there eventually. There was a couple of, like, keys you had to find, but, they were just okay. No Stormvale castles, unfortunately, to speak of. And then, aside from that, what else is to speak about in this other than the combat? Let's go somewhere else. Let's warp right up to the top here. Just get a really cool view. The combat. So, obviously this DLC has the blessing system, so that this DLC, even if you come into it at a high level with maxed out weapons, it's going to have its own leveling scale based on finding the Erdtree fragments. I thought that was a great system. No issues with that. You know, I found plenty of them as I went. I ended up at Erdtree Blessing level 17 in the end, which is fine. I was only 3 away from max level. Yeah, I found that to be a fine system. No real issues with it. I felt myself gradually getting more and more powerful. Yeah, this is right at the top of Enir Elim, which is the divine tower that gets unlocked when you burn the Erdtree roots. That's on top of the Ballarat Tower settlement. Visually insanely cool looking. This view from up here with the green out there. I just realized the green sky there. I don't think I've seen that any other time in the main game, but that's like the green of the background of the main Elden Ring, like the loading screen with the guy kneeling before the Elden Ring. And the background's all green, so that's pretty cool that looks like that. But yeah, this is a cool, like, this is literally right before the final boss of the DLC. So you're way up here in this tower. You can see the jagged peak just as you could right at the beginning. You can see the Erdtree. There's the like the ruins of Rao down there, and there's the Shadow Keep over there. The visuals and the map design are extremely good. And the thing about the map design that From Software does is it's not just that they're good at making interesting architecture and making really cool dungeons like the Stormvale Castle, where it's like intricate and it feels like a real place and it feels like you're really getting into little back rooms and hidden passageways, and there's many ways to get across it, and everyone's going to have their own unique experience of the place. There's that, but then there's also the way they, like, every time you walk out of a building, usually there's some kind of interesting view set up for you. Or you'll go out of a room into a dead end and you'll think, shit, there was nothing at that dead end. What the hell was that for? So you turn around to go back, and then based on having walked to the end of that dead end, you have a different view and you see some item that you can drop onto down below that you wouldn't have noticed if you hadn't gone down to that dead end. This is something that From Software is extremely good at. They just have a really good understanding of how to get players to discover things on their own while giving you enough generally visual and I guess layout information to kind of guide you towards these things without making them too blatantly obvious. So good on them for that. But okay. I mean, I guess I just have to admit that these games are getting a little bit gradually less and less for me, because with all that good stuff that I've said, what kills it for me is the really intense boss design. Now, I am generally pretty good at video games, but I'm 38 years old. You know, I don't have the same reaction times or like pattern reading abilities as I did, you know, when I was 10, 20 years younger. And I can see that people that are 10 or 20 years younger than me do better with some of these really crazy boss patterns. It's just a bit fucking much for me now. And I find, like, since Dark Souls 3, Elden Ring, and this DLC, I feel like the designers of the boss fights and even a lot of the regular enemy encounters, they've just become really sadistic. It's like they're not just making something difficult for the sake of challenging you and making you rise up to a new level of gameplay skill, so that you can be satisfied and then appreciate the interesting design that went into the boss. I feel like they're just trying to make bosses that are as witheringly detrimental to, like, your mental health and self-esteem as possible. And obviously that's not true if you're someone who is just naturally good at these games. Like, I don't like going to guides. I don't like looking everything up. I don't like getting to a new boss and getting overwhelmed by the patterns and getting overwhelmed by the fact that I only survived 10 seconds for each of my first 30 attempts because the boss double shots me, and there are just like 5 or 7 different fucking moves or combos that I have to learn, and like it just, you know, it takes a while when they only use a couple moves per rep of the boss and you just die right away. You're like, did I even learn anything off that run? I feel frustrated. I know I have to wait another minute and a half to load back into this fight. What did I actually learn? That's how I felt more often than not against more of these bosses than not in this DLC, just the same way as I did in Dark Souls 3 and in the main game of Elden Ring. Every boss, it's like, what is it like? It's like having to learn. You know when you go to a new job and there's a whole shitload of stuff to learn and it's overwhelming, but they reassure you, like, don't worry, just learn a little bit every day and you'll get there. I feel like every single boss is like learning a new job. There's new, like, weird attack delays. There's almost never any, like, visual indication for when the attack's actually gonna come out. It's like purely you just memorizing it based on a specific timing, because like the boss, like for all the delay attacks, the boss will delay the attack, but then when they like start to move in the actual like final hit of the attack, it's almost always so fast that you don't have the reaction time to react to it. I don't anyway. So then it becomes a purely time-based memorization of, okay, this move starts and then it's how long until, okay, there it is. And eventually you get to see it. And for every single boss, if I just went onto YouTube and found a guide of somebody showing when to dodge each move, yeah, I could learn them like 20 times faster probably. And I would probably have more fun within the boss fights themselves, actually knowing what to do. But I wouldn't be satisfied. I would be like, well, this is just somebody else playing the game for me. So I don't do that. And I also, like for this run, I decided not to have any projectiles. I wanted to do an all melee run, which like people are saying now, like, oh, if you choose to do that, you're doing a challenge run. Really? The game's got more melee weapons than non-melee weapons. Like, I don't consider that a fucking challenge run. I'm not doing it at soul level 1. Oh, and this, I upgraded the Smith script dagger for fun after I beat the game, just because I wanted to try it out. I thought it was cool, but I didn't use it during the game because I wanted to do melee. So yeah, like my first run through of the game, I was a faith user, so I was like throwing lightning bolts and shit, and that made it a lot easier. But this run that I came into the DLC with, I was doing melee only. So I'm melee only. Dude, this boss fight right here, the fucking, you know, Leda and Dryleaf Dane and Moore and Hornsent and Freya, the red main. I fucking soloed this melee only. Holy Christ. And by the way, I finished this at, well, I'm at 258 now. I finished at level 257. So I did not have any shame about fucking going and grinding levels and stuff, because like I was doing it no soloing, no help, like I didn't summon anybody for any boss. I just did solo melee. But aside from that, I mean, I gave myself, you know, I let myself use whatever items I wanted to, whatever weapons. And God, yeah, every single boss fight is just like learning a whole new job's worth of information. All the combos, all the different ways that combos can like end early or be extended. Just the really intense, like fast, slow, fast, slow, fast, slow, like combos where it's like a fast attack, then a slow attack, then a fast, then a slow. You just have to memorize it all. There's no like, I don't think I don't think the best reaction time and best pattern recognition reading person in the world could get these boss patterns immediately. Like, a really well-designed boss, in my opinion, even if it's insanely difficult, you should be able to be learning things right away. You should be, like, picking up on what's going on pretty quickly, but there's just too much going on visually, and not enough of it is giving you information. I find a lot of the combos for a lot of these bosses start up in a similar manner. There's like really specific tells. Like I found out after beating Radon and then watching a bunch of people fight him that to get away from his meteor attack, you have to like run back really far as he chucks like the 8 or 10 purple meteors at you. You have to run back really far and then jump to the side at the end, and it looks totally unintuitive. It's like, and that does a shitload of fucking damage, and that's just one of his attacks. Like, it's just so tricky. Like, you need to, like, be a detective for every single boss. It's not like you learn some of the bosses and then you learn, oh, there's a theme. Oh, there's this one or a couple different things that I can apply throughout all these bosses that will hold true. Not true. Not true. They're all very uniquely designed. And you don't get that within the individual bosses generally either. There are a few bosses, I can't even think of what ones in this DLC. But there are some bosses where you start to understand their way of moving. The example I always go back to is Champion Gunder in Dark Souls 3. There was just a way he moved. So it didn't matter that he had like 5 or 10 different attacks, and they were all kind of different. There was a theme to how his character model moved, where I could always see visually, oh, it looks like he's about to strike when his arm gets to this point of, like, extension, when he's swinging his sword or his glaive or whatever he had. I find most of the bosses don't have that. There's no... Like, it's like... It's realistic in a sense. It's like you're in a battle with someone who's really trying to do their best to kill you, and they want to trick you. They want to shock you. They don't want you to know what the hell's coming next. And I just feel like for a video game, it's just not that fun for me. I mean, during my fucking Let's Play of this DLC, I raged so fucking much. Oh, did I go the wrong way out of here? Let me warp somewhere else. I fucking raged so damn much because I just feel like the bosses don't give you enough to work with unless you want to be what do they call it, like a meta slave, and just going and finding whatever is some OP build or OP weapon or OP spell, and then just use that in the way that everybody tells you. I mean, technically, that's how I beat the final Radon fight, because one of the guys commenting on my video pointed out that, like, my gameplay style that I used for all of Dark Souls 3, which was shield and spear, what just happened to be the one of the major cheese strats for the final boss, Radon. And this game, I did use no shield the whole time. I tried something different. I used mainly a two-handed greatsword the whole time. I did end up using a lot of this light greatsword because I thought it was cool. And then I wound up using a bunch, or not a bunch, but I used 2 great katanas, actually, to beat that 5-on-1 fight against the Guardians of Mikola, or whatever you call them, that I was saying there, with Leda and Dryleaf Dane and whatnot. But basically, yeah, I was going for big two-handed weapons in this run, and I mostly got it. But then, like, after I finished that Leda fight with all of her fucking fine warriors there with her, fuck, it's dark at nighttime. I mean, this is all really cool looking. Like, what are the curtains of light coming off of the fucking Skadu tree? Whatever those are, those look cool. Super cool. There's the one moon. Anyway, yeah, I won't belabor the point too much, or any more than I already have, but I just am not finding the bosses fun. They're just so intricate, so tricky, and I feel like the people making them are getting to be very sadistic. And I know that in Japan, like, it's you know, considered a fun thing to just take on and incredibly insane challenge and overcome it slowly but surely by, grinding away at it and getting better. And like, I like that, but I guess only to a certain degree. Like, I prefer like Dark Souls 1 and 2, where it was just a little more reasonable. Like, and then I know that there are, summons and spirit ashes, and there are all these things to make the game easier for you. And that's fine if you want to do that, but I feel like the way that, like, just doing like a melee run of the game, and like, again, very high level, 258. Well, I'll beat it at 257. And 17 Erdtree blessing levels. Like, I don't think this should feel like a challenge run, but it did really feel like I was on a challenge run. And like, I was like just taking on something really, really absurd. That's kind of how it's gotten for me. It's a bit much. It kind of makes me wonder, like, a lot of people know that the original Super Mario Brothers for the NES was really popular, and then Nintendo in Japan made a sequel called Super Mario Brothers 2 that they released in Japan, which looked very much like the first game with just a minor graphical upgrade, and it was just like a way harder version of the first game. It was like, if the first Super Mario Brothers isn't the easiest game in the world, but the second one was just like 5 times harder, and they didn't release it in North America because they thought that North American kids wouldn't have fun with it and wouldn't just want to bash their head against the wall, maybe like Japanese kids, or maybe Japanese kids are just generally more skilled at stuff like that. Hard to say, but anyway, we got Super Mario Brothers 2 with the turnips and everything. And I kind of wonder if they had released the lost levels over here back in the 80s or whenever it was released in Japan. We eventually got it not too long after we first got it in Super Mario All-Stars for the Super NES. But if that had been the sequel to Super Mario Brothers in North America, I don't know. It might have made the average kid feel like I feel fighting fucking Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3 bosses. That's my rant. If you want to hear me rant on this subject more, watch any of my boss fights in my Let's Play of this game. Watch some of my boss fights for the DLC preparation run I did in Elden Ring, leading into this. Especially my Morgott fight was very fucking brutal. Or check out my entire Dark Souls 3 Let's Play or my Dark Souls 3 review. I just harp on this point so fucking much. And yeah, I get really angry during the boss fights and get pretty fucking cringy, get really like rageful, get really depressed sometimes, but it just is what it is. I'm doing this to have fun, and then it just takes it a bit fucking far for me. But God, the aesthetics are so fucking on point. Like, the bosses really slow down my enjoyment of the game, but the aesthetics, and like, I'm not a graphics person, so it really is the aesthetic and the art style that does it for me, and the map design, and that all comes together really well. The new weapons and armor, all very cool. Love getting new weapons and new armor, new spells and stuff. I thought that was all great. There's plenty of it in the DLC, so no matter what kind of build you're using, there's something for you to be found out in the world. There's probably several things for you. I thought some of the new like weapon types were really cool. Like the light greatsword, I think, is like super fucking sweet. It gives you the length of a greatsword, but the quickness of a straight sword. Thought that was very cool. Dude, it's one of these guys. There's the perfume bottles. There's like the hand-to-hand combat shit. It was cool. Very much appreciative of all that. Anything giving people more options for how they want to play the game, I think, is great. and obviously a lot of people really enjoy trying different things. I'm not one of those people to like take it all the way to New Game Plus 7. I like to play through the game in a very slow and steady manner, really like juicing every single bit of enjoyment that I can out of it, which is a lot of the reason why I don't use guides and try to only just take minor hints from people. Like I don't mind getting hints from people. Kind of reminds me of like being a kid and you and your friends would like exchange information on where to find secrets in Mario 64 or something. But I don't like just going and following a guide unless I'm specifically trying to get something that's really difficult to do without a guide. But yeah, every run I do of one of these games, I try and pick some new weapon paradigm. And it's cool. It reminds me of Monster Hunter, how each weapon... I think the weapons in Monster Hunter are a little more unique. There are less of them, but they're a little bit better fleshed out. But I would say, out of all the games I've played, or the game series I've played, it's a little bit of a distant second for me, but the second best, player versus enemy combat series out there is this series, the From Software series, which is why a lot of the really like over the top insane boss choices I just find a bit much. Yeah, my favorite is Monster Hunter, and yeah, even some of those Monster Hunter bosses can get really insane, like shit like Rajang and stuff. Maybe I'm just old, maybe I'm just a little over the hill, because I watch some other people and they seem to get the patterns a little better than me, which is sad for me because I've always been decent at video games, but, eventually you gotta just admit that the new generation is just fucking better than you. So that's that. But, yeah, the aesthetic's cool. The map design is cool. A little bit too much empty space. The lore of this game is extremely interesting. There's just so little of it, and it's hard to put together. The quests in the... Like, being that I don't fucking use a guide or anything, like, I completed little to none of the quests, even though I talk to everybody I come across until I exhaust their dialogue. I always try to advance quest lines, but basically these games are really hard to complete a lot of the quests without a guide, because they're just so obscure and weird. It just is what it is. Hey, another cookbook, right on. So I like the lore of this game, but I find it kind of sad that I can't figure a lot of it out without other people kind of filling in the blanks for me later. But it is all very interesting. Like, I still couldn't really tell you what was the deal with Mesmer here. Like, why was Mesmer here? What does Mesmer have to do with Mikola? Why was Mikola here? Like, who are Mesmer's, like, who's Mesmer's other parent? Like, why did Melina not show up throughout this entire thing? Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. I wish we could have like fought Mikola. I guess you kind of did with the Radon fight at the end. So the lore is extremely cool, and I feel like it ties into all the aesthetics, like the different armors they create, and the way that all the different item descriptions like clue you into various aspects of the lore, I find is very interesting. I just wish it all came together a little bit better, but obviously that's how these From Software games are, and it's one of the positives of these games too. It's like you pay for the minimalism by not often getting like fully like nailed down solid answers to burning questions. But then the upside of the minimalism is that when you discover little pieces of lore, it's like really juicy and interesting, and you really feel like you're on the trail of some kind of mystery. I find, like, I love the how they would give you the different paintings and the random like maps and notes, and they did it in the main game too. Sometimes you would buy them from a merchant. I found that really cool. I think they could do even more stuff like that. I found that was a really fun way to make an open world game with very little direction a little more explorable. Like, I think that's a really cool way to do it. It reminds me of the Bomber's Notebook from The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask for the N64, where it's not like a modern game where you just have like a list of quest markers and you just, it's like paint by numbers, right? You just go where the fucking game tells you to go and you advance the quest. Majora's Mask for the N64 had a notebook that had all the main like NPCs in the game, and as you talk to them and they would tell you different things, the notebook would slowly get filled out and it would hint towards like what you might be able to do with certain people in order to advance certain quest lines or just make certain interesting things happen. And I think they went with that system in Elden Ring and the DLC here with these notes. I wish there was a little bit more of that, but I do think it is really cool. And shit, I don't know what else to say. This DLC was really cool. There's a lot of entertainment value here. Like, if you enjoyed the main game, I would say you'll definitely enjoy this DLC. There's lots to explore, lots of interesting terrain again. Like, my favorite part was the exploration, whether it was exploring in the overworld, getting into the Shadow Keep, making my way across that western rampart, and realizing that, oh shit, I'm finally in this part of the map that I was trying to get to for so long. Let me see what the hell all is over here. Finding Marika's village over here, where like way up here, was like super cool. It plays like the same theme as plays when you're fighting the Elden Beast while you're there. That was super sick. Yeah, there's just so much cool stuff to find. The finger ruins with the giant fingers coming up out of the ground, and I like the way everywhere you go, something that you find ties into some plot thread that you're already aware of. It usually doesn't give you a ton of information on it, but there's always a little bit more to be learned. Some of the stuff was a little underbaked, though. Like, the whole DLC feels great, but a little underbaked. Like, what is with these fucking crosses? There's no, like, it looks like, you know, maybe it's gonna be Miquella's piece of the Great Rune, but then that never really comes about. Miquella's Great Rune broke at one point, and like there was no fanfare to it. It was just like, oh, all the NPCs I talked to now are saying that the spell broke and Miquella's Great Rune is broken and everything has changed because of this. It's like, well, when did that happen? How did it happen? What did I do that triggered it to happen? What does that mean? Where's the indication of it? And to like 12 other random questions that I don't even know to ask, but probably should have the answers to. It's a little bit too obscure for me. That's just personal to me. I wouldn't assume that I, you know, should go and like tell From Software how to take this really beloved and excellent aspect of their games, which is the minimalistic lore delivery, and tell them how to change it. But if and when I make a game like this, I will definitely take some inspiration from their lore delivery, but I think I would like to give just a little bit more. I think it would be neat if a really dedicated player, just through using their nose and exploring around, could, you know, figure out more of these mysteries. A lot of it that kills it is just the really, really super obscure quest. Oh my god, am I gonna die to these random fuckers? The really fucking obscure, like, quest lines where you just have to, like, follow this person across the map with no indication of where they're gonna be next. It's just a bit much. But in a way I can see why they do that, because we're in the internet age where information travels so quickly that they're probably trying to have some secrets like stay secret for a little bit, even though people just go and like scour the fucking game files of the game like on day one, which I don't think is fun. I think it's more fun to try and find things organically, but that's just me. Anyway, so that's the DLC. I mean, the ending was very underwhelming. There basically is no fucking ending to it. not a lot of questions get answered. The DLC feels very disconnected from the main game for the most part. There's a few callbacks that are interesting, like whenever somebody references America, it's pretty cool. The second last boss, the one I really complained about with the 5-on-1 versus Leda and Dryleaf Dane and whatnot, the lore aspect of it was really epic. Like, they're all trying to fight for Mikola. They thought you were on their side. Now you're, I guess, not on their side. And they're like fighting against this Tarnished who they've been helping and has been helping them, but now they find out, like, I'm working for America and I'm really the Elden Lord. That was super epic, but it was just hard to enjoy the epicness of it while I was getting smoked like about 100 times in a row in a 5-on-1 battle. But yeah, other than a few things, though, a lot of this just felt very disconnected from the main game. I would have preferred like an area that was like more connected to the main map. That might have been a lot harder for them to make. This feels very separate. It almost feels like its own whole different game. It's like GTA 3 to GTA Vice City a little bit. Like, other than, obviously, you can take the weapons from the main game and use them here and vice versa. But, so, it was great. There was definitely enough here for me to enjoy and to motivate me to put in whatever amount of time I put in. 165. I don't know how long it took me to get to the DLC, but probably 80 to 100 hours I spent in the DLC. But I will say it was, one, like the bosses, it just got too frustrating. A lot of them I just was not able to enjoy because you just die too fast. There's way too much to learn. They're really fucking tricky, and I feel like I'm losing patience faster than I'm gaining knowledge as I fight them. It's just not that fun for me. But yeah, the exploration made it worth it. The interesting map design, even though the map is a little sparse, was fun for me. I enjoyed exploring almost all of the new areas, and every time I found a new cave that would lead me into some different part of the map, I thought it was quite fun. A lot of the new enemies and stuff are very interesting. The mini dungeons, on point. Loved every single mini dungeon I did. Very satisfying. The legacy dungeons were all right, but they left me feeling underwhelmed. A lot of the medium-sized dungeons were a little more satisfying for me. New weapons and armor, all very cool. The level scaling, I thought, of the DLC was fine. And just adding more interesting lore on top of everything was cool. But yeah, I'm just not. I guess I'm just not I'm an Elden Ring liker. I'm not an Elden Ring lover. You know, and I feel kind of the same way about Dark Souls 3 for a lot of the same reasons, but I think I would go back and play through that game again before this one, just because the design is a little bit tighter, even though that game is extremely linear. I prefer the smaller, more tightly designed areas versus the big wide open fields and stuff, which is obviously mostly what you're getting in this game. So that's it. That's my long rambling review of Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree. Fuck, I almost forgot what the hell it was called. So thanks for listening. Yeah, I just started uploading Let's Plays and stuff to this channel a few months ago. I did a blind Let's Play of Dark Souls 3. Then I did a Let's Play of the original Final Fantasy VII, which I hadn't played in years, so that was a lot of fun. Really delved into a lot of like lore on that one. Obviously, that one is not heavily combat centric, even though there is like some interesting strategic gameplay in that. It's not super combat oriented like a From Software game. So that was more like lore, kind of like burned my fucking voice out, just like reading dialogue. But it was all very interesting. And then after that, I did the DLC prep, Elden Ring. I wanted to start a new file that was not in New Game Plus to prepare for this, so I did that, and then I did this DLC. And the next game I'm going to play is The Witness, a game by Jonathan Blow, the guy who made Braid, that really popular indie game from about 15 years ago. So The Witness is supposed to be a super cool puzzle exploration game. Came out, I want to say around, it might have come out in 2014 or 2016. I never played it. I'm going to play it now because it was on sale. So that'll be my next Let's Play. So definitely like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think of this game. If you check out my Let's Play, let me know what you think of my gameplay, of my raging, of my... It's not all raging. Mostly it's not raging. It's only, you know, during select bosses and enemy encounters that I'm raging. A lot of it is just me talking over the game, me talking about stuff in life, whether it's my personal life, philosophy that I'm interested in the world, politics, like world events. That's kind of why I'm doing this. Let's playing video games and talking over them is like a good way to have something fun to do and then have something to talk about where I'll be like commentating on the game and what's going on in the game, the lore, the strategy, the weapons, how I'm approaching the game. But then also it gives me a chance to, like, when the action in the game goes down, I like can talk about personal, you know, stuff that's personally interesting to me, which is like one of the main reasons why I'm doing this is because I don't really have a lot of that in real life. I don't really have anybody that sits and talks to me, even when I try and make that happen. So I'm having to outsource to the internet, and so here I am. So leave a comment. Let me know what you think about life, the game, my gameplay, YouTube, etc. Anything you want, I will talk to you. I grew up, man, when YouTube started, it was 2005. I was 19 years old. So I've seen YouTube right from the beginning. I've been a fan of YouTube right from the beginning. And I miss the older days where people would upload videos and actually, like, do video responses to each other. Everything wasn't clickbait. Someone just talking into a camera could get a lot of views if it was on an interesting subject. The meta has changed, but I've really enjoyed, like, in this Let's Play, there have been two people that have been consistently commenting all throughout my Let's Play. A guy named Poisonous Flame, who does his own Let's Plays of From Software games and other games. I think he's doing Half-Life 2 right now. And a British guy named Nefarious, who just uploads like videos of him like fighting From Software bosses. So check out Poisonous Flames Let's Plays. Check out Nefarious's bosses. You can see him fighting Radon and Millennia and Rolana and all these interesting bosses, right? And these guys throughout this Let's Play would comment, and I would, you know, shout them out in my video, or I would reply to comments. And it's fun. It's fun to actually have a little bit of a real sense of community, not just, you know, we throw around the word community a lot in the world. There's a lot of the use of the word community in marketing, but it's to try and like make you feel like you're part of a community. But then, like, when you go to actually interact with somebody, the sense of community isn't totally there. Like, I want to, even if it's just in a little way, but hopefully it could become big, like, create actual community of people that just, like, enjoy talking to each other, enjoy commenting on each other's videos, sharing ideas, you know, making video responses to one another, and just generally, like, giving a shit. And that requires actually, you know, caring. If what I've got going on here, if the things I say, if my interesting, totally natural voices like this are not of interest to you, you know, then I'm not the audience, or you're not the audience for me, and that's cool. You know, everybody's got their own unique interests. But if you are interested, to bring this full circle, please comment. Please leave a like. Please share it. Please go check out, you know, more of my Let's Play videos. Eventually I'll get better. Eventually I'll start doing edited videos. I know Let's Plays are kind of an old meta. Nobody really has the patience for them anymore. Probably the people that do watch them like skip around or just watch the parts they're interested in, or maybe they just put it on in the background. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that there are some people out there who will just find my way of talking and my way of thinking interesting. But it all really helps. I would like to make a career out of this eventually. I'd like to make money off of it. I'm gonna do Twitch streaming sooner rather than later. I just got to make a setup for myself. But yeah, if you can help me out, I would really appreciate it. And hopefully, you know, what I'm offering here is of value to you too. So that's it. The video is almost over because I'm recording this on a PlayStation 4. You only get an hour to record at a time. And it doesn't matter because I've run out of things to say anyway. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Let me know what you think of this game and of my review and of the larger From Software conversation. What game do you want From Software to make next? My vote is for Dark Souls 4, basically, but with a Dark Souls 1 or 2-esque map. Anyway, thank you, and check you out later.